So now we're going to switch to the state of our local communities. And sitting in order from me are Mark Newcomb, the chair of Teton County, Wyoming Board of Commissioners, Bob McLaurin, the town administrator. Mayor Muldoon is out of town and couldn't make it. Hiram Johnson, the mayor of the city of Driggs, which I'm waiting for this year's extraordinary over-the-top comparison there, Hiram, as we all are. And finally, Jeff Potter, who's the mayor of Victor. As I mentioned earlier, we had also extended invitations to the mayor of Alpine and the head of the Teton County, Idaho Board of Commission, neither of whom were able to make it. And so each of the speakers will have 10 minutes to reflect upon the state of, I guess in this case, his jurisdiction. And I'll give you guys a couple minute warning when the time is up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jonathan, once again, thank you for inviting me to partake in today's gathering of such a wonderful community, regional and local. I'm going to jump right in to the question Jonathan asked us all to think about today. What are our core values, and how do those values guide us in times of turmoil and in times of plenty? Fortunately, I didn't have to think too hard about that. About 10 years ago, when I had relocated back to the region and was living in Driggs and subsequently Victor, the Victor City Council at the time embarked on a 2-year visioning exercise with a grant from the Orton Foundation called Envision Victor. The results of that 2 years were a set of core values that were informed by more than 3,000 individual points of contact with community members, both city residents, county residents, visitors, and beyond. And those values are a tool that our city has adopted formally and continue to use on a daily basis in the ways that we make our decisions, the ways that we prioritize our resources and our staff capacity, and the way that we communicate with our community and inform our citizens. Those values are preserving small town feel, maintaining a family-friendly city, maintaining our connection to nature, fostering sustainability, both economic and environmental, and remaining culturally historic, celebrating the history of our community, but also striving to maintain cultural relevancy in today's day and age. Those values have driven and informed policy decisions from new zoning, from updating our comprehensive plan, creating tools to foster and manage effective growth like an urban renewal agency, to establishing a formal non-discrimination ordinance so that our community is inclusive of all members of the community, to enhancing our recreational opportunities in the southern end of the valley. A couple examples are an ice rink that the city's invested in along with the Teton Valley Foundation, and a cross-state lines initiative to continue to make connections on the Teton Centennial Pathway, where the city of Victor has spearheaded the Idaho side, working with Teton Valley Trails and Pathways, Idaho Transportation Department, and our Wyoming cohorts with Friends of Pathways, YDOT, and other agencies to ultimately connect Teton Pass with a separated paved pathway. This project is a $3.3 million project on our side of the state line that will occur in 2019, along with a small section in Wyoming, leaving the only remaining section of that pathway to connect the two sides with means other than vehicle traffic, will be from the Trail Creek Campground to the top of Teton Pass. So exciting stuff there. Things we're looking at right now, again, utilizing those core values to inform, are adopting design standards within the city to protect that small town feel, and evaluating housing. Our county and the cities have created an affordable housing advisory task force that is charged with identifying programs that will garner broad support within our community. In Teton Valley, Idaho, the word affordable housing is a 4-letter word. Housing authority is even more frowned upon, I would say. So we face some challenges on that front in coming up with a plan that's going to be supported to the extent that it can actually happen. So we're working on that right now. A couple areas of importance in Victor, specifically on the housing front, are increasing product diversity, encouraging multifamily product that is more affordable to our working citizens, and moving more truly affordable products forward through ultimately a housing authority. So we're working on that right now. All this kind of brings me to what I am going to refer to here today as the Jackson effect on our community. What is the Jackson effect? And I'm just going to give a couple examples. We talked earlier today, we heard from our colleagues about the challenges presented by the influx and continued growth of our tourism economy regionally. But the bigger impact being that for every 3 jobs created in Teton County, Wyoming, only 1 of those jobs is being provided a place to live. So housing and real estate pressure is a tremendous issue in our community. These are some statistics just from the city limits in Victor. So you can take these statistics and expound them to broader county. Victor is roughly 2,000 residents, and our county is somewhere between 10 and 11,000, just for context. From 2016 to 2017, the median sales price of a home in Victor city limits and the average sales price of a home in Victor city limits is up over 20%. With comparable volume and comparable days on the market in those 2 years. So significant pressure, upward pressure on the affordability of our existing inventory in the valley. Commercial real estate sales are up 17.5% value-wise. Downtown Victor up to about $134 a square foot to purchase commercial real estate on Main Street. Rents are about $12 a foot a year for anybody paying rents in downtown Jackson. Similar impact is being felt in the rental market, which has begun and continues to place a strain on our own local critical services resources, teachers, police, fire, EMS, etc. We're seeing more and more of those folks having to consider leaving the valley to either change employment elsewhere or to work in Teton Valley, but move to Madison or Bonneville County, where they can afford to live. This pressure has effectively kicked off a totally precedented and completely expected boom of new construction. Rents are high enough, the cost of purchasing real estate is high enough that now people are beginning to build again. In 2005, the city of Victor issued 39 building permits. In 2015, it was 29. In 2006, 53 permits. In 2016, 36. In 2007, at the height of the boom, 113 building permits, which is an annual record for the city of Victor in recent history. And in 2017, last year, we've had our highest total since that year at 78. In 2008, that number dropped to 35 for obvious reasons. 2018, it remains to be seen what happens in the national economy. But with roughly 10 years of planning work and preparation work, a lot of it guided and focused on how do we avoid that kind of impact from the national recession that our valley felt the last time around. So my hopes are high for 2018, and we're anticipating that number 78 is going to go up substantially. We've already got an expectation of development applications that are not submitted yet, but that our planning department of one person has been working with developers on, of upwards of 500 residential units, primarily multifamily, coming in the next 6 to 8 months in the city of Victor. So the boom is happening, and we've been working toward being prepared for it so that we can actively guide and shepherd good, effective growth that not only benefits our city, but benefits the greater region. I'll repeat the statistics again this year. Roughly 80% of households in Victor have at least one resident who makes the commute and works in Jackson. That number for the county up to Driggs is more like 70%. But that is our identity as a community. So how do we embrace that while still working toward creating a town, downtown, a main street that supports local business, that can provide resident services to our citizens so they don't have to come over the hill for those services. So that's an area of focus. And our new zoning encourages higher density residential development in the downtown core so that we can start to work toward establishing an economic foundation that will provide that regular support to businesses. Driggs has the luxury of being the county seat and has the 9 to 5 operations that are typical in a town. Victor does not. So one area that we are hoping continues to grow, and we've got a new 56-room hotel going in on Main Street, is a fledgling tourism town. When all those residents are over here working during the day, who's going to fill that gap? Visitors is sort of the low-hanging fruit from our standpoint. With this growth is going to continue to be growing pains. School overcrowding has been a major issue, which thankfully is going to be remedied here in the next couple of years as a result of that school bond test. And I'd like to point out that Victor was the highest jurisdiction in supporting that at 90%. If that tells you anything about the community that I have the pleasure of serving. I've got to wrap up here, but there's a lot of good stuff going on over on the other side of the hill. And in Victor in particular, that Teton Centennial Pathway is a big deal. We all survived the eclipse, again, as a result of an extensive planning effort from agencies in Wyoming, in Idaho, further west in Idaho. A lot of planning went into that, and you plan for the worst, you hope for the best. Well, the best occurred, and largely as a result of all that planning. I guess I'll add a few other things, but my time's expired, so I'll leave it at that, and thank you all for coming today and giving me the time.
So we'll take a few questions, and then we'll go into a break. So questions, please. While the microphones are going out, I will ask a question. Did you say that people are getting priced out of Victor and Driggs? Would you care to expand on that?
In our school system, teachers that are recruited to the Teton County, Idaho School District and are developed by our school district spend time there, and we suffer a lot of attrition to our new teachers who come in, get their feet on the ground, established, who actually seek employment opportunities on the Wyoming side because the pay is almost a 2-to-1 raise immediately for first-year teachers in Wyoming versus Idaho. That's one example. To the extent that a teacher can't get a job in Wyoming, some are being forced to consider moving because they cannot afford the rents or to buy a home in Teton Valley, Idaho. Another example is our local grocery store in Driggs. Brolam's has to maintain a staff level adequate to, operate a grocery store that serves the entire community, has had to begin bringing people in by vans and buses from Rexburg and other points west. So those are just a few examples.
Law enforcement too.